Hello, folks, and welcome to the Gallant Few Rangers podcast. By God, we are back. Rangers are back doing things. Gallant Few's back doing things. My name's Colin. I'm not a new podder. I'm just returning from my hiatus. Good to see you all, and joining me tonight for a wee bit of Martin-Mania, we're calling it. It's Jack. How you doing, my friend?
Colin, I'm actually really good. It's good to see you. It's been a long time. I feel like this must be the way the Rangers team feel when Danilo comes back every 6 months for an injury. It's good to see you, mate, and hopefully it's the start of something good again.
I know. I'll be honest, like I said to you before going on air, I'm like, it's been a long time. I'm a wee bit nervous. I was shaking like a shitting dog girl, but I'm sure the listeners won't be too harsh on me. My first one back. Hello to all the listeners, obviously. As always, get your comments put in. Let us know what you think of today's events. And as always, give it a wee like, subscribe, follow, wherever you get your podcast. So, Jack, we don't have a new manager. We have a new head coach. The press conference today with Patrick Stewart and co announcing Russel Martin were very clear on he's a head coach. What's your initial reaction to this announcement?
I was a bit in shock because I never expected Russel Martin to get the job, Colin, if I'm honest. I always felt like his name never really went away, but I never thought he was a front runner. I never thought, no disrespect to Russel Martin, the kind of names that were fed to us at first, they were of a higher there was a higher pecking order. I'm not disappointed in it, but I did not expect it.
You're not disappointed, but you're just fucking off with the camera.
My camera seems to have went. No, I wouldn't say disappointed. I was surprised, but I was all in. As I said to you, I was all in Gerrard and a couple of people I know. When you say it in the know, but there was one or two whispers he was the main man and he wanted it, but for whatever reason there was a one or two things. We don't know for sure, but I think there's one or two maybe legal things that held it up. I wasn't too keen on Ancelotti, Colin. I remember I said this to you after it, because I also heard that Ancelotti's been talking to other teams as well in Europe, so I think he's pimped himself out for a job. But I think now it's just time. We had to get a manager in because that's more than 3 months since Clement was let go, sacked, whatever you want to call it. Barry Ferguson wasn't everybody's cup of tea to take care, but I actually thought he'd done his sale all right. Like he took responsibility, never hid for anything. I just think, Colin, it's just time to get going again, get moving. I don't even mean like a fresh start, like people. I just mean it's just time to let's get going, let's get into it.
The way I've described Russel Martin is, it's a very underwhelming appointment, but it's probably a realistic appointment. This is okay. I'm going to lose some storage points. It's my first night back, but the Rangers' job isn't a very attractive job right now. There's another rebuild yet to happen. We're a million miles off of Celtic on and off the park, and I don't think just because we're back with the San Francisco 49ers now, that changes the job at hand. So I think we need to be realistic in the type of manager we got. The reaction to Russel Martin, I don't think we would get that reaction if he wasn't an absolute dud for us for that 6 months, I'll be honest. And anybody, I'm not really seeing what the alternative could have been other than Gerrard or Ancelotti. Gerrard, you can maybe argue he would have been the more sensible, solid appointment. Anybody who's telling me that Russel Martin is less of a gamble than David Ancelotti, I've got some magic beans to sell you.
No, Ancelotti's name is sexy. Let's not kid on, and it's glamorous in world football. In the last 25, 30 years, that's a name that's well known, Ancelotti, but that's Carlo Ancelotti. It was David Ancelotti, and he might have good contacts, but I don't know. I'd rather go with somebody who had a bit of experience. I do think if it's held against him his time at the club, Colin, I think that's unfair because it wasn't exactly the best time for somebody to come in. Now, Russel Martin, he wasn't great. He actually came in, he started no too bad, but he probably knew he wasn't staying any longer. And, it's just one you get a lot of these loan signings into it where they're not the worst player, but they know they're no staying there the summer. They've probably been told you're no part of their plans and it just kind of peters out. But what he done for us, I mean, he never really, it wasn't as if he never tried that. He seemed professional enough. I just don't think anybody at that time was going to do much. We were just in a bit of a horrible position at the time. So I don't really think I shouldn't be held against him for me. I don't know what you call him, but I think that'd be unfair because Mourinho never played for Rangers. Rafa Benitez never played for Rangers, but if he were coming, people would be happy with that. You know what I mean? So it shouldn't be held against him for me.
Let's address the elephant in the room as well. I think the man's lifestyle choices, he's to their own. I don't really give a fuck, right? But they're quite funny. There's a lot of good part I've been going about, and I've just returned back on the Gamfield Twitter this week as well. But any comments about his lifestyle is either 50-50, half it's excellent chat, the other half is just mental meltdowns saying how unsoothing it is that somebody wouldn't eat meat or he's a Buddhist. I mean, come on. I think we're clutching at straws if the guy likes a gluten-free IPA as opposed to a Budweiser.
He's got a very different lifestyle to myself, but that's entirely up to him. And if he's a vegan, if he wants to save the planet, then I mean that's up to him, Colin. You know, if that's what we're going to hold against somebody, I mean, how do we even know these things? You know, I mean, if Brian Laudrup turned around and said he was a vegan the whole time he played for Rangers, not one person would have a problem with it. So I think there's a bit of selectiveness in it. Something that's quite funny. And see, to be fair, Russel Martin, what I've seen him so far, he doesn't seem like somebody would, if he was to mention it, he doesn't seem like somebody that would take any offence to it. It kind of just seems like he's here to do a job and that's it. And if that's what he believes, how to live his life, then that's up to him. He's not exactly had a bad life. He's done no too bad for himself. He's probably a multi-millionaire, played millions of games of football and done no too bad at pulling a bird as well. So that's...
he's a good-looking boy. Credit where credit's due. He is a good-looking boy.
He's a confident boy, isn't he, in that press conference? I mean, you would have believed he's won the English Premiership the way he spoke, but I've not got a problem with that. There's... it's better than I'm coming here and shrinking, you know what I mean? He certainly believes in himself.
So, on his actual credentials then, for me, I'm being... This is the most layman's terms of Russel Martin's careers, but he went... So, I know when he got the Southampton job, he got a cut before Southampton. He had a couple of decent runs at kind of low expectation teams like MK Dons, teams like that, and eventually got the Southampton job. He got them promoted from the Championship into the Premiership, and I think that season he got the season in the Championship. The first 6 months it was excellent. Like they were punching well above their weight, looking like they're getting into top four, potentially even challenging for automatic promotion. They really struggled after the January transfer window, struggled through January, dipped, ended up getting into the Premiership through the playoffs. Then after that, in the Premiership, lost a lot of decent players, still spent a bit of money, but it was just never got going. So I think, is it a cliche to say that in the first season did he maybe get the promotion too soon? Is that a stupid thing to say?
It's no a stupid thing to say, but it was probably... You've seen teams go up. Ipswich went up with them as well. They weren't any great shakes, you know what I mean? Like Leicester, they've all went back down, no problem. So Southampton going up. I think the gap's getting bigger between Premiership and Championship now as well. Southampton spent a bit of time out the Premiership, went back up, down, then back up. Am I right in saying that's how they done it, wasn't it? See the Leeds team he beat, that was some job, Colin, now, like, because Leeds were total favourites to win that playoff final when Southampton went up. Remember, that was the Leeds team with Glenn Kamara in it, and they were expected to come up through the playoff that year. Leeds won the championship this year, no problem. So he beat a good team to come up. I think what happened in the Premiership now, one thing I didn't like about Russel Martin was he was very stubborn in his approach. And we have learned that before with Mark Warburton, but I do think maybe football's moved on a bit where like that is how you're expected to play now and whatever. It's weird that is it a bad thing getting promoted? I mean that's the actual aim of the game. But his Southampton team, even with the money they spent, I mean, look at Tottenham and Man U. They've got world-class players near the bottom of that league, so it's a very hard league to do it in, Colin, for me.
Aye, it's that you've made a really good point there, man. I want to come to Mark Doy's put his point in that you need to remember Brendan Rodgers' record starting off as a manager. He did get sacked a few times, but also won the league with Swansea. Can't just judge Martin and Southampton, and I think that's fair enough. I think Martin's got a track record of improving teams, but my main worry bead is what you mentioned there, Jack, was you're saying stubborn. I say time and time again, and I've said this for any of the listeners who watch the Premier League show in the Grand View, it's arrogance. Arrogance that you can get promoted from a championship to the most competitive league in the world, and you don't need to change your philosophy or your style of play or your tactics. I slated Vincent Kompany for it, but lo and behold, he went and got the fucking by Aye. And through this season, myself, Jamie, Johnny and Mason on the pod, we've gave heaps of criticism to Russel Martin before he got sacked on. No, there's only not even few managers in the world that can do this, few clubs in the world who can just stick to their philosophy. There has to be some adaptability. Now, he did say in his press conference today that he corrected one of the journalists saying, no, that's not strictly true. We do adapt to different styles and different tactics depending on the game, but the overall philosophy stays the same. So I wonder if that's him just using different terminology to get the press off his back, or if he's maybe learned something for Southampton.
I think Rodgers is a good example, but Rodgers, when he got Swansea promoted, Colin, where it's unstaunch or not to say they were a cracking team, Swansea, and I think Michael Laudrup took over for Rodgers and went to Liverpool. He built a right good team, and Swansea went up. They were never in danger of going down until he did go down. That was the way it was. Russel Martin came up with Southampton. To me, Southampton are probably a bigger club than Swansea, and he didn't adapt to the Premiership. Like, it was his arrogance, and it is arrogance. I agree with you, and it might be his philosophy. But I watched a Southampton game last season, but I think it was just before he got sacked, and he were 3-0 down at home to Brentford, I'm sure it was, and he didn't change it. He ended up getting beat like 6-0 at home, and it was pure stubbornness. And I was watching it. I was actually watching it on the Fire Stick. What was the post listening? And what it was now you're watching it, go, all right, that's 3-0 now. You'd put everybody back. You know what I mean? Like, but wouldn't do it. And it was almost like, it wasn't the same size of game, but it reminded me of our first trip to Parkhead when we came back up the league. Do you remember when we went 3-1 down at Parkhead? You're like, look, 3-1, just get out of there all day. And it was a stubbornness with Warburton to keep going forward. And what you end up doing is you end up throwing players under the bus doing that, because you've ended up getting players getting told no what to do with the natural what to do, defend and retreat and make it respectable. That's a worry. On the flip side of that, Colin, for me, Postecoglou was very arrogant and didn't change. And see up here, if you've got the right players, it can work, because if he's got an eye for a player like Ange did, and I hate again to give him credit, but Ange Postecoglou played that way and never changed, and he won 5 trophies out of 6. So if he's got an eye for a player and you've got the right players, that philosophy will work up here.
Aye. Whether it was Russel Martin or it was Pep Guardiola, the manager is going to live and die with the players at his disposal. And this is where I do think we've been saying this for years, man. We need to do something different out with the management. It's no... The game's moved on. We don't have the Walter Smith type saviour anymore. So Kevin Thelwell coming in is going to be a massive appointment. Neil Scroppin didn't cut it. He's moved on. But we need a squad around the manager to be implementing football philosophy, looking after the academy, getting the right players out, moving the right players on as well. All of that has to go on behind the scenes. And if we're being perfectly honest, and I'm not saying Clement shouldn't have got sacked or Van Bronckhorst was good enough or Beale was good enough. Whether they've all been good enough or not as managers, I think we can all admit they didn't get the right support above them. So that absolutely has to change.
Colin, I was in the minority last year. I wouldn't have sacked Clement. I know it got quite hard towards the end. I know Queen's Park there was no coming back from, but Rangers should still have 11 players in the whole squad that should take carry a game like that. But like Van Bronckhorst, like Clement, like we've mentioned before, going back nearly 20 years with Le Guin, when you're bringing in ideologies that are totally different to what Rangers are, you need to get behind it and be a whole thing with the club. You can't just go, we need somebody that knows the Rangers way, this, that, the next thing. And I don't know if that guy's there anymore, like to even, because we brought Ferguson in. I think Ferguson done a respectable job for him. Like I thought the way he carried himself was good. Football wasn't great, but I think the season had petered out. We at one point now, I know this shouldn't keep a manager a job. We can't keep sacking managers, but we're in a bit of a position with this call now because I thought I'm not being revisionary. When Van Bronckhorst got the sack, look at our injury list at the time. Any manager in the world, it was at 14 internationals at one point, he had injured. It was something ridiculous. And Clement, you could argue, right, people say Goldson should go, Barisic should go, Ryan Jack should go, whatever. I don't personally agree with that. But if you're going to get rid of the players and you're going to give them Robin proper, then that's no backing a manager either. So the club has got to have a lot of accountability for me as well, Colin. And if we're not going to buy into the ideologies, as you say, of Russel Martin, and we're not going to look after our academy, which is becoming a waste of time because there I've seen Adam Devine's away for nothing. I mean, that boy's worth a couple of quid. I mean, he was a decent player. And I just think top to bottom, something really needs to change. And I hope this is what the new squad are going to do because I mean, our Balogun and Hadji away at the door last week, Colin, right now, people will say it's time for players to move on. I watched Celtic and Aberdeen in the Cup final. Balogun's a better player than Liam Scales, and Hadji's a better player than Luke McGowan, and they get a lot of minutes at a team we can't get close to. And we're losing these guys for nothing. Something has really, really got to change.
Aye. My worry is with Hadji or Balogun going out, and the conversation isn't, are they what we need? Are they good enough? Will we replace them with better? No, because exactly. And see the examples you used, Goldson and Barisic, people argue to death, should we have kept them, shouldn't we have no? And the argument for should we have kept them is, well, we didn't replace them with better. But it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can admit players need to move on. It might be the right thing, but we still need to replace them with better, and we've not done that way. I mean, have we got better than Scott Wright?
No, we've not. And Colin, this might sound mental, or do you just manage them better when they get older? Aye. I mean, Richard Gough didn't play every game in 8 and 9 in a row here now, and he was still a very important player for us. Ian Durant didn't play every game in the last couple of years. I'd say McCoist in his last 4 years when you've even started 50% of the games, but he was still a big player for us. We're far too quick to get players out the door. But, and I'm sorry if it's the man you, Alec Ferguson, where you bring out, you get rid of like Paul Ince, for example, because you've got Roy Keane coming in for Forest and you've got a young boy in the reserves. We don't have that. I'm sorry, getting rid of your best players if there's an infrastructure. We do not have that at all. We can't be letting guys like Hadji go for nothing. As you said, replacing them is going to cost money because you're not going to get a player of ability at his age. Only we get rid of him for nothing. Even like an Adam Devine, who might not have been a major player for us, but I thought that boy was good. And he's away for nothing. And Balogun, people can argue about his age. Colin, I don't see Rangers renew with two better centre-halves than Leon Balogun. And if you are Derek McInnes at Hearts, you'd be like, if I get Devine and Balogun, that probably guarantees me third spot, two cracking players like that. And we're just letting them willy-nilly go. Lewis Mayo 2 years ago. I just think the running of Rangers for the last since Gerrard left has been an absolute embarrassment, mate. Like, the players that we are saying are all good players that have not been replaced. Sorry, it's saying when Jack left and Lindstrom left, they've not been replaced. Scott Wright, you said, has Scott Wright been replaced with better? Tierney was a better player, he's on loan. I don't even think we've got anybody better. I don't see that. I'd been as well keeping Scott Wright for what he actually took out us in a wage.
Aye, exactly. Because, sure, I can't agree with you more. Let's stick in that theme with the player trading model as well. It's kind of something that's been mentioned today at the press conference and in the last few weeks. But there's some good comments coming in for the listeners. KW saying we need a full back line, a number one, 6 wingers and a Billy a striker. So, I mean, I hope Santa comes early. Mark Boy, I'll put this question to you. He's mentioned a couple of players, Jack. The ex-Aberdeen striker, Miovski, Shankland could be on a free, Nathan Patterson on loan. And he's also said the Peterborough winger who were rumoured with, I think it's Kwame Poku. Do you see any of these rumours coming to fruition?
If Miovski was available, of course you would. I just don't. I think, see, even though he doesn't play all the time for Vale, they're not going to make a loss on him. They'll probably get a £7 or £8 million back. I'd love Miovski, but I think there's probably teams in a better position financially that could take him. But I think Colin would agree that Miovski would be a brilliant Rangers player. What was the other name he said there? Sorry.
Lawrence Shankland, and I'm going to answer that one. Get bin in the fucking bin. No, not a chance.
If he's for nothing, he's more available than Danilo.
Hard to argue with that.
Right. Nathan Patterson, that would be good. Now, I don't know if Patterson's never let Everton down, although he doesn't always play. So I don't know if Patterson could probably find another team in England, or if he went. Patterson's probably good enough as well. And he's at an age where if he wanted to play abroad, he could probably get a team in France or something like that. He's a good player, but available, I would definitely have him, because we'll probably come on to Tav at some point, but we can't keep relying on the signings we never stay fit to rotate with Tav. So Patterson, they rotated brilliantly a few years ago. That would be good. And I don't know anything about the Peterborough guy, Colin, but Peterborough always seem to every 4 or 5 years have a brilliant player. So I would go after him. I feel like Peterborough's one of these weird teams that have a brilliant player.
And I think that's a market where we started seeing a wee bit of success coming in. Like we got the likes of Josh Windass and that coming through, like League One, Joe Aribo. Brilliant. If we can get good value for young players there, it's not a bad market to put in. And I know people, I think it's different getting young, up and coming players for the player trading model for lower end Championship or League One to journeyman for Championship. Like, so Joe Aribo was a much better bit of business all in all than John Lundstrom, for example. So I don't think we rule out England altogether, but we do need to broaden our net quite far. Nathan Patterson's a funny one. I think he's got to be similar to what Billy Gilmour's been the last couple of years before he set the head of the light in Napoli, where he's always got to be rumoured until he has a nailed-on spot at a club. He's always got to be rumoured backwards. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I think he'll be able to get regular football in a better league.
That's unfortunate. He's probably it's just he's not in a game every week for Everton. That's a minute, and Everton have got good players. You know, Coleman's been there and that. It's I'd love Patterson back, but I think he could go to France or a German team mid-table quite comfortably.
Yeah, and why would you not take the punt to go to Italy when Scott McTominay is like the Maradona reincarnated? I mean,
I'd love to have Patterson back, but I think that would be Patterson and Miovski. I think if actually two of them came in, you'd be like, wow, that's some boost to the Rangers squad. But and I know you're no big in Shankland, but as I say, he is more available than Danilo. So yeah. I like Danilo. I actually think you do as well, Colin. I think we've spoken about him. I think everybody knows he's a good player. He's available. It's just can't rely on it.
So Danilo, I will put in the same camp as Rid van Yilmaz, where I really like the way they play football. They just don't play football often enough. And like I said it time through last season, where it gets to a point where reliability and availability has to trump ability, because ability is not enough for no playing. I do like Danilo, but this is what Mark Dowie in the comments again saying contracted to 2028. Are we going to see much of him? Apparently so.
Was it a 6-year deal, wasn't it? It was something crazy.
$6 million or something we paid for him as well.
See, Yilmaz, I mean, I'm not his biggest fan. I don't know if it's because I think we just spent a lot of money on him when we didn't really need a left back at the time. But see, Yilmaz and Danilo and Cotter as well, what happens as well, Colin, see, when they do get back in the team, their confidence looks like it's going as well sometimes, doesn't it? And it's like you need to get that back. If you need the match sharpness, you need the confidence, then another injury pops up. I think Danilo and Yilmaz, they seem quite popular as well among the Rangers fans, but I think if you get a transfer offer for any of them, you would probably put them at the door and let somebody else's doctor worry about them.
Speaking of transfers out, he's mentioned this a couple of times in the comments. Mark again. I just had to check it on Twitter there and make sure he wasn't bamming me up. And I get done on follow meltdowns.
Was there no one last year we were talking about somebody live and he actually signed for another team during the podcast?
I can't remember that one. And also I broke the news that fucking Tav was going to Saudi Arabia as well. I got sold up there. But anyway, I've checked in Twitter and it's going mental with Robin Proper going back to FC20. What a job Russel Martin's doing. He's just at the door. I hope the hordes of anti-Russell Martin fans on Twitter are going to apologise, but obviously it's just right there's a couple of decent reputable Dutch news agencies reporting this. It looks like it's going to be a goer. I don't think many of us will be sad to see Robin Proper go, will we?
No. If we could find some old archive on it, and I tried to say I told you so when we were getting rid of Goldson and linked with him, nobody really heard of Proper, and there was a reason for it. Now, before everybody gets their hopes up, the guy is for Holland, and he might just be going home to see his family. This is a thing as well. He might just be, and he played for 20.
Don't ruin it.
Here's a good one. All these Rangers fans that wanted for the Goldson, phone Harris Limassol or whoever Goldson's out and say, do you want to swap him for Proper? And see when they've stopped laughing off the phone, we'll find out what we should have actually done there. Proper, Colin, I'd be amazed. 50,000 season ticket holders, if you said to one of them, if you got offered him to go, would you keep him? I'd be amazed if one said aye. And I don't even think he's the worst I've ever seen, but he seems like the most unpopular. It's the weirdest. There'll not be one person with his name in a shirt. It's just. I think he's one when you let a player go out of emotion, because I think Goldson kind of get the blame. I know win the league last year. Because that's a comfort blanket, and then you bring in somebody because you need to bring somebody in. It's almost like you cut your nose off to spite your face, and Robin Proper is. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Loch Lomond area, but a guy in my taxi had said it's like going for the Cameron House to Bruce Hill. It's too tall. And I think I don't even think there'll be a transfer fee, Colin, to be honest. I think if you went, that would be it.
And no, but we can't make money back in every player that we want ready. It doesn't work like that. If we want rid of them, then has to be some sort of, the outside world know we want rid of him. But getting his wages off the books is a big one as well.
It's also been a disaster in money in it. I mean, that's 1.6 million.
Aye.
Plus 2 years wait. We need to pay him off. That's what would happen.
Yeah, and I think I would put this one down to not a bad footballer, just couldn't hack it in Scotland. And he's not alone in that, because I think you've seen some decent performances for him in Europe in the continental style of play. I think if we're being fair, but in Scotland, he just never cut it and he never looked comfortable at all. It's one of those things. He's not the first player. There's better players than Robin Proper to come up to Scotland and no get going, and he won't be the last one to do it.
There's been better have made a mess of Colin. But as I said, I can't think that he's so unpopular. It's weird. Like there's no even like a cult now. Like every kind of poor players get the odd like aye, but this or an excuse. Like even you'll get ones with Joey Barton and they're quite right saying like, oh well, him and Warburton clashed. There was a reason why it didn't work. There's no an argument for proper. It's a weird one, isn't it? Like nobody will put an argument up for him. Like I don't think he's got a support at all. Like, and I'm including like unpopular ex-Rangers players who've probably got people who would stick up for him in an argument, going, "Well, no, this game it just wasn't right." But proper, like with foot being the worst I've ever seen, he seems like the most unpopular. Like there's just no support for the guy at all.
On potential outgoings, then, as I said, I've just been back on the Garden View pages the last few days, and by God, people still hate James Tavernier, don't they? And I have there's that one page that we all know about who, I don't know, I could ask somebody I could tweet somebody asking them the time and it would give me fucking abuse. But I've mentioned something about Tav and people just lash on. Like, I still don't think Tav's the biggest issue we've got.
Tav's never been the biggest issue we've got, but he's a comfort blanket. Tav's made this fatal mistake, Colin. He's fit and available most of the time, so that's a fatal mistake in the eyes of a lot of Rangers fans, because that means you're going to get the blame. While Dujon Sterling, who's a good player but hardly ever fit and available. Casemiro, whatever his name was, hardly fit and available. Two guys that are 10 years younger than Tav that couldn't do the workload that Tav gives us, put it that way. Yeah. And I mean, then I'm saying things like he's slowing a week in the jail. I can't buy into that. I mean, I see the guy running up and down in European games all the time. I see him going into centre half. What was it, like 13 games in a row? He had every game at centre half. It was something like he's 13 games at centre half with an assist or a goal in every one. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's incredible numbers. Like, if you think that's not what a centre half's meant to do. The guy just gets the blame of it. It's a comfort blanket. Dessers has joined his wee camp now. I know Dessers gets it as well now. It's called being fit and available.
That's it. What is it? Familiarity breeds contempt. He's for me to say I nearly drowned in more saliva trying to say the R's there. But like, I'm going to go back to what I said last season. And even the season before that. I mean, they're all on YouTube, folks. You can go back and see my conversations about James Tavernier. James Tavernier can be an asset for Rangers this season, but not in the same way that we've used him. We need somebody to challenge him and replace him. But James Tavernier can add value to the squad. The issue's been that we've over-relied on him, and there's no decent alternative. And people, I think Casemiro was maybe a bit unlucky. Right? He really came in a game and then got that bad injury. Dujon Sterling has not been able to stay fit and reliable. Put him in the Red Van Yilmaz camp. You know what I mean?
He's a good player as well, Sterling. Yeah. He's a good player. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not... In the grand scheme of all the players being rushed out the door, James Tavernier isn't my first one. I mean, I can think of...
He's the only starter that can cross a ball into the box. I mean, like, Yilmaz can cross a ball, but doesn't play enough. But, you know what I mean? See if the ball's on the left-hand side, Colin, I think you have to put one in for Dessers in the Aberdeen game towards the end of the season. He scored a header. Nobody can cross a ball in the box apart from Tavernier's squad.
No. But I wonder, like, just pushing it back to Russel Martin and back to the potential transfers coming in, I wonder what style we're going to try and see, because it's very possession-based football. And what I will say is there was a lot of praise for his Southampton team in the Championship and how they beat a low block. And, I mean, that's music to my ears. Because I don't know if necessarily, like, the crossing in 50 balls a game is really going to help us against a low block Motherwell. But I do wonder, like, where am I wrong with this? What's your priority if you're Russel Martin for getting players in?
See, just quickly, we were saying that we're forgetting that with Balogun going and proper signings out the door, that probably means Tav would be starting at centre half next season as well. Totally taking that out of the equation. And so, before we throw him at the door, we're going to sign better players. But so he plays a certain way and he doesn't change it. Now, we have seen up here with the arrogance of Warburton, I think we've touched on how that doesn't work. But if you sign the right players, Colin, you'll be absolutely fine. Because when Postecoglou played this system, Jota and Maeda can get in behind players. I think we signed Gerrard didn't play. It was quite attacking, but it wasn't an all-out attack. It would suit Gerrard suited a Kent because he wasn't in behind. He'd cut back and look. I think if you get the players like Celtic have signed, like the ones that are just always, as soon as your teams get the ball, they're just ready to run in behind. Now it will take good scouting. It will take probably money as well. We need to spend money if we want to compete as well. There's got to be any money spent in quality. I think his system could work, but we need to get the right players. We need to buy, and this is what I think with Russel Martin, Colin. The players he'll want to do that job are going to cost money. So there's got to have been a conversation where we're going to give you money, because if no, that wouldn't make sense for him to come up here, because the way Russel Martin plays, if we were to play a game tomorrow, we've not got an 11 to how he plays. Now, we've not got an all-out. Tierney would have been a total Russel Martin player, I think.
Aye, big time. I think he would have.
And could still be.
Aye, well, I think I'd be shocked if Rangers spend the money that Wolfsburg want for Tierney.
We're going to have to, but if we want, this is the thing, we need to start.
Well, I wonder if we do spend that money on just a couple of players, get some free player, loans, maybe some project players. I know nobody wants to hear that, but think what Russel Martin, I don't know if you listen back to that interview with Gary Lineker as well. What came through there, what came through the feedback for like MK Dons and Southampton and the interview today, as he's always been given the onus to develop the players he's got, get the best out of them, and bring young players through. And I don't want to sound naive here, because every manager we've had since Ali McCoy's left has spoken about the importance of bringing young players through in the pathway. And here we are, 10 years on, and it's still no came to fruition. What I would say is different with Martin is he's got a bit of a track record, and he's openly said that when he took the Southampton job and the MK Dons job, that was one of the targets he was given by the owners, that had to be young players coming through and creating the club assets.
We need to be patient with young players, and we'll know. We talk about, for example, we wouldn't spend that money in Tierney, but if you bring in project players like Iggerman and Jeffy, we're not even very patient with them either, Colin. So they're going to have to be. We can't have it both ways. We either want winning right away, or we want to develop players, and we're not winning enough for now not to be winning stuff. So it's stuck between a rock and a hard place. But I do know Russel Martin is all about kind of developing players. I think Robbie Fraser, I think we've both touched on it before. I think he's a good player. I think that's one who I'd be looking at for this season. And I mean, it's quite so many. See, Jeffy and Iggerman, they might not be our academy players, but they're young players as well. There is young players in the team. Dear man, he's a young player. Do we kind of need to start maybe giving myself a bit more credit for like what some of these that we find, like Bassey, right? He wasn't a player, but we developed them. I think sometimes we need to look at that and be a wee bit fairer on ourselves with that, because it's quite hard to put look at the abuse McCausland's getting. I like McCausland. I thought his first season was good. Second season, I think he struggled when Cantwell went at the team, because I thought they two linked well. The fans aren't great with the young players either, Colin, so maybe the fans as well, some of us need to be a bit more patient with the players.
The start of last season, me and you had a couple of pods in this, and Ross McCausland was the example. And it's funny, we will criticise them, and I'll be guilty of as well, you'll be guilty of it, but football fans are always guilty of it. But we're hypocrites, but we're fans. It's part and parcel, isn't it? But in the same breath that you moan about the manager not giving enough young players a chance, you will moan about the young player not being good enough. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it. I don't think I don't think McCausland is quite the answer. For me, he's not developed enough over the last season, but I do think he's been given a chance. I think he's contributed. I just don't see him being long term. Like, he's no one I'm going to be rushing out the door because he's on low wages. I think we have bigger problems. He can come on to a job for the last 10, 15 minutes here and there, but long term, for me, he's in the straight right camp. But I think the good thing with McCausland is he was given the opportunities.
I think McCausland, as I said, him Cantwell and Tavernier were a good triangle on the right hand side, and then he can see the thing has been McCausland, but it's easy to drop him, and then his confidence probably goes as well. But we shout we want to play young players, and then moan when we're not winning. One that really annoyed me last year, Colin, was the Dynamo Kiev game when we needed a left back home and Jeff to get sent off. And he brought Ben Davies on at left back to protect Fraser. And I thought, see if that's the case, close down the training centre. Because see if you're worried about throwing a guy on against Kiev and you're 2-0 down for 10 minutes, right, you're out the game anyway. And Ben Davies is going to play in Stadium. That was the day I thought you might as well just totally forget about the youth system, man, if you were more worried about protecting Robbie Fraser. Where you protect him from? Whenever I've seen Robbie Fraser come on, he looks like he's a Rangers first team player anyway.
Aye, exactly, and that's where I go back to the amount of managers we've had pay lip service to a pathway for the academy, and here we are as well. So I don't want to be unfair. Like, we need to judge Russel Martin and how he follows through and the actions he takes, but I'm not going to be all in straight away saying this guy is the one to develop a youth until I see it.
Aye, let's face it, see if we were to play Panathinaikos or Bran, whoever we draw in the European game, Colin, and Russel Martin goes, well, I'm all about youth and plays 3 players and we get put out, the place will go mental. When is the right time to play the boys? We just, the right time for us to play reserves are if you've got League One with 6 or 7 games, that kind of luxury, and even then, it doesn't often happen. I think we're at a point soon where we decide if the youth system's even worthwhile, honestly, because I'd love it to work, but there's too much pressure now, Joe. But I think Gerrard alluded to it at one point, didn't he? Saying, he says, I know I've got good young players, but I've no position to play them. Remember, Gerrard genuinely said that once.
Yeah. But I think...
And if anybody knows about developing a player, Gerrard came through Liverpool reserves and turned into one of the best midfielders in the world. He knows how difficult it is to date, and even he couldn't even afford somebody the opportunity.
Yeah, I think the difference is the direction coming from the top of the club, and Mike in the comments saying the new owners will absolutely push youth because that's a way they can bring assets in for next to nothing and potentially make a fortune off them. So I think that's the only difference we might see. And I know Dave King and co in the past have brought in directors of the academy, but it's all really been more of the same what we've done before, just with fancier job titles. I think there will be a revamp here because the 49ers consortium are going to want to make money, and this is a surefire way that they can do it.
But what about, they're saying that this is what they do and this is how they go about business. They've no been at Ibrox where it's 0-0 with 8 minutes to go at home to St Mirren yet.
So this is one. This is one.
Rangers is unique.
Well, I've not been on the pods since the 49ers consortium chat began or took over, but have they got to care? So it's interesting. Dave King's interview the last couple of weeks in TalkSport, I think it was, he was very pushing the comments. This consortium aren't buying Rangers just to go and win one league. It's about making them sustainable. So I think the long term is more important for our new owners than just getting the 3 points every Saturday. They'll maybe pay lip service and say, "Aye, no, we need to win every game," blah blah blah. But I think we we might get a bit of a shock on how the short term looks, on what the short term expectation is compared to the owners, because if we don't win it for the next 2 or 3 years, but in 3 years' time, we've got a young, healthy squad, we've made money, and then we go for a push. They might see that as a success, whereas the fans won't. So that's been my worry with it, Jack.
Aye, because I mean, I would imagine if you don't win the league, what is it, 14 years of American football, and I'd imagine if you don't win their equivalent of the league, you don't have people going mental and shouting, "Get the captain out here with a puffer jacket." And I think we're in a total different world. We don't, or like when Celtic made a mess, you don't have people throwing sharks at first team players and all that. There could be a culture shock if they think we're not going to win anything for a couple of years, and people are going to accept that if there's going to be success in 2 years. Colin, if we get to, I will be good in 2 year time, but we're not going in for a couple of years, people will still go mental. Nobody's going to have that at all. We pay a lot of money for the privilege of watching us win many leagues. You know what I mean? For us, we have got a big support paying a lot of money, and if they don't get that side of it, they'll get it quite quick. They'll get it. See, when we play Bruges in this friendly, if we don't win that game, wait till you see the online reaction.
Aye, but back to the point I made, will they care as much as the previous owners?
Well, I suppose they don't. It depends where they stay, but
what school do they go to?
Aye, but it depends where they are. If we, after a poor start to the season, I think if 49ers will win for a culture shock, and I've never known if San Francisco lose a game to Boston or whoever it is, I don't know what happens over there, or if they don't sell enough corn dogs or something like that. I don't know where they get stressed out over there, but I think they're going to have to get used to it quite quick. And I know what you're saying, the business model doesn't work like that, but it's going to have to. If they're going to see, there's no way they've not done a due diligence, Colin. You must realise this is a mental part of the world for football.
Aye, I know, and I'm talking about the worst case scenario, because you see what happens to the likes of, I don't know, Cardiff, like Leicester, Man City. Everything's been really like hunky dory. I know Man City like win Champions League, but that's been at expense of a lot of fans in the short term and the long term. What I would say is Leeds are a big fan base, big northern club, and they seem relatively happy with the stewardship. So maybe I'm just panicking a bit premature.
To be fair, but look where Leeds were. Leeds were a bit. Well, it was easier for us, Colin, because we went down the leagues, but Rangers could kind of buy themselves out of their leagues and we could attract players. Remember the way Leeds were when they were doing in League One and looked desperate for their mind. So see if they've got a bit of stability, they'll not really be caring where it comes from now.
Yeah, exactly. So last point I want to ask you about, Jack, finishing a bit of a high. This new away kit's a fucking belter, isn't it?
Well, my thunder gets stolen. I made a good point to you privately, and then somebody else got all the credit for it. But it reminds me of, I was in holiday in 2008, and it was made an absolute mess. You would apply for your Falkirk tickets. It was through Falkirk. It wasn't even through. Remember, you had to buy when they used to date. You had to date through. We made a total mess of it, so we ended up in the Falkirk end, and it was the first game of the season, and we were in the Falkirk end. We're trying to play the part, and they were singing "No HUNS" words in Europe because Kaunas had just put us out on the Wednesday, and we were totally out of Europe. It was so weird, and it was pissing rain. It was freezing cold, middle of July, right? And it was freezing cold at Falkirk Stadium. And we were kind of sitting, kidding on it. We're no Rangers fans, and Falkirk got a penalty, and Alan McGregor saved it. There was an absolute belter save. Michael Higdon, I'm sure it was. That's how long ago.
Michael Higdon, mind him.
Rangers started with 3 up front, right? And you know when you're in there, if you've ever done like you're in the home end, and you kind of scope out who else a Rangers fan, right? So they've said the Rangers lineup, and it was Lafferty, Velichka, and Boyd up front, and this guy's kind of scoped us out and all that. Says, It's a lot more attacking than it was last year, wasn't it? And Walter Smith's learned. It was the worst game I've ever seen in my life, and we were on 1-0 where I think Velička was lucky it was at the back post and kind of laughed to put it across. But it was a very attacking lineup, and we were rotten, but won 1-0. But that game's won us leagues for years. So Walter Smith had plenty of day games, and that's what that shot reminded me of. We would have shot a few times, but the other one I remember when it was 4-0 away at Forfar, and I'm sure Aaron Niguez get 2 goals. So that's what I remember about that shot as well. So another cracking name to go along with Velička.
Listen, I like it. I love that season. Velička is a blast for the past. I mean, your perfect third striker comes in, scores important goals. I think he only scored about 10, 11 goals, but by Christ, they were important goals for that bunch.
He was probably never good enough, but when he played, he kind of scored one at Velička. He played a part that season because that was a winner, in that game. So, do you remember his squad number?
Was it 30 something, like 39 or something? 37 years.
Aye. I mean, because I'm sure I was just one of you. I was wondering if I think it was that. Because for a new signing, he had an absolute rotten reserve number, as if you're behind Boyd, Lafferty, Miller, and Kuzan and Darshall, who were already there. But I liked Velička, Colin, to be fair. He was a really good Hearts player. Probably wasn't going to be a Rangers player, but he done the damage. He done the damage against Rangers as well for Hearts. That was
I mind really wanting to sign him 2 years before we did, because he was ripping it up for Hearts, and then he kind of had a no bad season after that. Then after that, that's when we signed him. Of course, we signed him after we should have.
But he done a job as a total backup striker for us. That's a good. And we go. Was it end up at Aberdeen loan and he went to a team in Norway or something? So I think we'd probably done all right anyway.
Yeah, a nice point to finish this on. Singing the Blues, cracking YouTube name actually. He says Rangers win trophies in Umbro kits, and that is a fact. So maybe Martin-Mania goes hand in hand with the Umbro Empire. Maybe it's going to be a good season, Jack, but I think that's a good time to finish it. Any parting words for yourself, mate?
No, I'm glad. Not in mental, just I'm quite glad that the managerial search is done. As I said, I was all in for Gerrard. I wasn't too sure on Ancelotti when it got known, Colin, it was Ancelotti or Martin. I didn't want Ancelotti, but I would have picked Martin over him. So I think if you don't want Martin, you can't even moan who it is. Now, then you're just going to be in a huff anyway. I don't know. I was still in a bit of shock when he got it. It's going to sound weird. See, as much as like it was strongly rumoured for a couple of days, Colin, were you seeing it was actually last night when it kind of broke that it would be announced? I was still in a bit of shock, and just as well I was in a bar, because I think it was the right place to be.
Aye, I know. As I said, underwhelming, but when you think about it, probably a realistic appointment. But he's here, and he's trying to get my feel back in. I'm going to give him, I think, the time he deserves. And yeah, let's just hope that not just him, but the players, the management squad, and the football and executives and directors, sporting directors, everybody delivers, because this is bigger than him, this rebuild. Realise we need everybody to be pulling. But I think we will leave it there, folks. I just want to say a massive thank you, as always, to everybody who's tuned in. Apologies from me for being on hiatus for a wee while, and sorry we've kind of lacked the regular content. It's going to be back up and running over the next few weeks. You'll be seeing more in my ugly cootum. Hopefully Jack has his camera sorted for next time. You'll see
Colin, I done well to get on. The pod, mate.
Yeah, but thanks for all the messages come through in the comments. Welcome me back. It's good to be back. And regardless how today went, you can't not just get a wee bit excited when a new season starting. So it's going to be an interesting summer. Jack, always a pleasure speaking to you, mate.
Mate, it's been absolutely brilliant catching up with you. It's been too long, so hopefully we're back up and running. Hopefully some positive things to talk about. We've got the manager thing over the line, so maybe it'll be about new signings and positive stuff like that in the next few weeks.
That's it. I'm still holding out hope for the Luka Modric still going through.
That I feel like every time I link with a manager, there's like a crazy talk with that call, and I just called it right away. That's crazy talk, Modric. I mean, Modric is still got a game for Milan. Madrid. So I think he's away to Milan. And see if no, he'd be going to Saudi Arabia and getting a fortune.
I know, but that's the beauty of the silly season, isn't it? You can hope. But until next time, I believe the two Davies will be on with you on Sunday and potentially some of the other podders. So until then, folks, have a cracking weekend and we will speak to you all again very, very soon. Take care.